back from a tree delivery on the Front Range. It's just me and my ex-wife. We were, I think, at the time I had a 2003, 2002-ish Ford Excursion. We headed back to our property here in the San Luis Valley, and we decided to take a detour down Sandines Road, I think it was. Sandines Road, either Mosca. Or is it Moth? I think it's Mosca. As we turned down the road going towards the sand dunes, it was a really dark night, fairly dark night. I think a new moon night. New moon, there's no sun at all, no light, no moon, just pure darkness. But it's easily to see in the headlights from just about any direction. It's a very flat valley. You can see just about everything. So as we come turn down Sandy's Road, head towards 160 back to our property just past Blanca, we decided to stop and camp there at the base of Blanca. There's a little jeep trail that takes you up to the Peak Complex in Blanca, Mount Blanca that is. And Mount Blanca is not occupied, and it's very well populated mountain range or mountaintop or peak complex, and you only get traffic there in the summer times. It's pretty desolate throughout the rest of the year, especially the sand dunes as well. We decided to camp, and our method of camping was, hey, just throw air mattress in the back of this excursion and rack out. Driving through the backcountry of Colorado can get very tiring, especially when you do it day in, day out. But it was a strange happening as soon as we pulled in. We started to get ready to lay down. It was a nice evening, very nice weather. It wasn't hot, it wasn't cold, perfect weather for camping. There was a camper next to us with the RV in tow. I think it was a Toyota Tacoma with a fairly new, late model, newer camper. Must have been like 25, 30 foot camper. And then I noticed some lights out on the side of the mountain there, or close near the side of the mountain. And I'm very familiar with this view of the mountain. I've seen this view thousands and thousands of times. I've climbed Mount Blanc. I've been to the sand dunes and there's a pot of falls, all that. So I'm very aware of the terrain. And being a modern mountain man, I see these things all the time. I see this, I understand the terrain very well. And it just perplexed me to see these lights that were, there's no way possible for them to be where they were, unless they were way miles, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 miles away in the range there just past the sand dunes, which is still perplexing because to be able to see these lights that visible and that many lights, it was just too perplexing. And at the moment I saw a car coming as it drove past on the highway next to us, and I started to analyze things because things started to not make sense. Because at first I thought it was cars, thought it was headlights, people come off a jeep trail. But it wasn't a jeep trail. A jeep trail was to the east of us, and these lights were off to the south, and it didn't seem far. And then the car headlights came. The car started coming down the highway, and that's when I determined this is definitely not a car. The headlights have a different effect, and it's definitely not a car. These lights weren't really pointing at us. They were almost like Chinese lanterns, but not hovering, they were staying in place and shifting. They would shift from one place in the sky to the other, shift. They weren't elevating, they weren't dropping, they would just shift. Sometimes fast, sometimes slow. But as the car headlights passed, I could tell this definitely wasn't a car. It was nothing like a car. Nothing like a car. As the car headlights passed, I could tell this was nothing like a car. And at that point, I couldn't take my eyes off of it. I couldn't stop looking and trying to figure out what this object was in the sky, what these lights were. And it wasn't a symmetrical pattern by no means. It was somewhat of an outline of lights, the missing lights, I guess you could say. It was very unusual type of lights. They weren't bright, they weren't illuminating anything, they were just there, in the sky. Very unusual. Most off-road lights, most vehicle lights, most camping lights, they're going to be moving. They're going to shine somewhere. Give some illumination. This was definitely not the case. It's definitely some unusual illumination, almost like amber lights. And then at that point, I cited a note from my wife, and then from my wife. I just didn't want to get her involved because I didn't want to cloud my thoughts. Women kind of get excited when they see things, and they can cloud your thoughts with all kind of crazy things. But I had to get some kind of second opinion, so I tapped my wife and said, "Hey, babe, look at this. Check this out. You see those lights over there?" And as soon as she saw them, she froze, and she started perplexed by the same lights. And I didn't want to say anything. I just asked her because I didn't want to spook her. I didn't want to, get her confused or anything like that with the lights. So I just waited to see what her reaction would be. And I continued to look at the lights. And as soon as I started discussing more, just watching the lights, I saw as they moved, they would shift. And I was like, "Do you see them shifting? Are they shifting? Is that my optical illusion to me?" I didn't want to believe because it was just so perplexing, so unusual. But then my wife said, "There's a light. Look, there's shining a light on the side of the camper." And I looked over at that moment. I saw this most unusual illumination. It was like a Rosetta type of stone illumination it was unbelievable kind of detail, but it wasn't a beam. It was some kind of way of illuminating something, and it was able to illuminate this pattern on the side of this camper, and the pattern was this purplish violet, ultraviolet looking pattern, and it was creepy because the pattern would almost glow like a heartbeat almost, but not as fast, very slow glowing orb pattern on the side of the camper. But it was an very intricate pattern. And it had very intricate, like a rose petal, but it was so intricate. It was so many different designs in there. It was a very intricate pattern, and it pulsed, and it would glow and illuminate the side of his camper. But it wasn't super bright. It wasn't dark by no means, but it was just the most strangest glow, powdery looking, glow I've ever seen in my life. And you could tell, it's had to come from this craft or something, because I've never seen anything like that. And we were looking at this craft, and this all happened. And I notified my wife, informed her what I saw. And then she saw the illumination on the side of the camper. And I looked over. I didn't believe it at first, because I was like, is this really fucking happening? Is this really, really happening right now? Am I seeing some kind of paranormal activity, some kind of phenomenon I can't explain. This is just fucking blowing my mind. I'm a very scientific mind. This is blowing my mind. But then we kept watching. This continued for like 30 from 45 minutes, I would say. I can't even remember the time frame. It seemed like a short amount of time, but at the same time, it was a long time. It was definitely a long time. We went to bed and woke up the next morning like nothing happened. The camper and stuff was gone. They left. But the whole event just blew our mind, because it didn't end there. Before we went to bed, before we got laid down, it did illumination again. It did the same thing, and it illuminated that same camper again. And that's when I was locked on, like, this is not normal activity. This is some paranormal shit going on right here. When that same pattern illuminated the camper again, and pulsed, and it stayed there even longer this time. And I was like, okay, this is definitely something. This is not something I've never, I can explain. And shortly after that, it, continued to do this movement, this slow movement, sometimes fast, sometimes slow. It was just staying at the same level and moving around the valley there. And it shined some kind of light or illuminated something down at the ground, and started almost like it was searching, almost like it was looking for something. And, and it was weird because I'm not sure if this is the same beam that shined onto the camper, because we couldn't see a trace from that beam. You would think you'd see some kind of trace, just like the headlights coming down the road. You would see a beam, a trace from that, but you could see no trace from this illumination on the side of the camper. And like I say, right after that second time it illuminated the camper, you could see it illuminating the ground. I'm guessing with that same beam. I can't say for sure. I don't want to say the definitive, but I know what I saw. And what I saw was undescriptive, unexplainable.
take a band on my chip, gun on my hip, don't get your shit peeled.